Pauline Viardot lived from 1821 to 1910. Viardot was considered to be one of the most influential musicians of her time due to her fame as a mezzo-soprano. She used this influence to gain performances and really create her own performances for her compositions. Cendrillon, the opera that we will be producing this semester, was written in 1904. Now, before 1904, really before the turn of that century, we see a lot of reference to what is considered to be the feminine genre. And this is a genre of music that women are allowed to write in classical music. This really is referring more specifically to music that features small ensembles. These were not compositions that were meant to be performed for large audiences. These were things that were sort of meant and designed to be performed at a small setting.
Some of the issues with the big houses are that a lot of operas by women are smaller chamber works. Like, women are often wrote in smaller settings, especially historical women.
Viardot and a few others really broke this mold at the turn of the century, composing symphonies, operas, cantatas, and many others. 1904 is one of the first operas that we see sort of breaking through the barriers, particularly in the opera world, which is an increased barrier due to the cost of producing an opera as opposed to the cost of even producing a symphony.
The big companies or repertoire theaters, paying patrons want to hear operas that they know, and there are not very many operas by women that people actually know. And so it's got a long ways to go.
Introducing audiences to this repertoire is tantamount. The main goal of this production is to increase the momentum that the movement of reintroducing opera by women into the repertoire has. Audiences are what is going to push opera companies and opera institutions forward in terms of being more inclusive in the repertoire that is being produced.
So what is changing? I think that a lot, actually, and it's starting from the university level and beyond, and that's really fantastic. It's happening in student-run groups. It's happening in university-level opera theater. It's happening then from that level to regional theater before it moves on to the bigger houses. Good things.
As we set out to produce this opera, we knew that this would be a group effort on all parts. The production team, made up of myself, Tessa Larson, and Rebecca Germany, began last semester formulating a plan for this production. We wanted to choose an opera that we could feasibly produce with minimal budget, that was also appropriate for the voices that wanted to participate in this project, and that allowed us to highlight a female composer. A large part of what we do as the production team happens behind the scenes. We organize rehearsal schedules, book spaces, and so much more.
In thinking about the lack of representation of women in opera, I mean, beyond the sort of obvious lack of operas written by women composers, and there are precious few that have made it into the standard repertoire. I think where I see it and have recognized it most is in the absence of women in roles of directing, stage directing and production, and also conducting. And I think you will find very few major conductors or conductors of major symphonies, and certainly conductors of opera companies who are women historically. And I think that is where I have seen more strides, particularly in academia, happening in more opportunities for women to take on roles as stage directors, and increasingly more in directing as well, conducting.
In an attempt to address these disparities, we also set out to create opportunities for graduate students to be able to stage direct, conduct, and fulfill leadership roles within this production. This is not something that is typically found in a performance program, so to be able to provide this opportunity for students is rare. The creative and leadership team of this project was chosen specifically to address the disparities for women offstage.
It's knowing that women weren't included in those processes and moving towards making sure that that's the case.
So I would say I became aware of the lack of representation. I was sort of broadly aware of it when I was a grad student. And then as my professional career has developed, I researched opera companies and their seasons, each season after the next for some of the top companies in the world, and noticing that there really was very little being done. There were a lot of new operas being made, which were fantastic, but not many by women. So even for a grant I wrote not too long, about 4 years ago, I did a survey of just a simple survey of the Met and San Francisco and Berlin and Chicago, and just to see how many were by women. And I think the answer were, out of their full seasons, there was one opera by a woman out of all 4 companies.
Yeah, there is an incredible lack of diversity in my education about composers, performers, librettists, directors. I learn about dead white men, if we're being honest. That's 90%, if not more, of the people that I'm talking about in my history courses, in my lessons.
Throughout our educational careers, we have seen a lack of diversity at the institutional level and beyond. As emerging professionals in this field, the responsibility to enact the change that we want to see falls to us. Our mission in producing this opera is to highlight the work of underrepresented composers while providing performance and leadership opportunities for other students. The change we want to see must begin with us, and we hope to encourage others to be the change that they desire to see as well.